So build yourself anyway. Let's start with a truth that might sting a little. Most people don't care about your struggles, not because they're cruel, not because they want you to suffer, but because, like you, they're carrying their own weight, their own stress, their own silent battles. Life is tough, brutal even, and everyone's trying to stay afloat. So when you keep waiting for someone to notice your pain or hoping the world will reward your effort with applause or validation, you set yourself up for disappointment. You keep handing your power away. Now, this might sound harsh, but in reality, it's freeing because once you stop expecting the world to cheer for you, you're free to build in silence, to grow without needing permission. That's where the Stoic mindset begins, not in chasing comfort or approval, but in choosing clarity over illusion. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor burdened with the weight of an entire empire, wrote to himself, "It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things." He wasn't waiting for praise. He wasn't begging for pity. He trained his mind to be still, even when the world was chaos. So ask yourself, are you growing for yourself, or are you still secretly hoping someone will finally notice? The moment you stop needing external validation is the moment you take your first real step toward emotional independence. You stop being a prisoner of other people's reactions and start building your life on your own terms. And no, it's not easy, but it's powerful because that kind of strength, it doesn't get shaken by rejection. It doesn't crumble when people ignore you. It stands tall, even in silence. So if you feel like nobody's watching, good. Use that. Build in the dark. Strengthen your core. Focus on what you can control, your mind, your effort, your character. That's the essence of Stoicism. Let the world be noisy. Let others chase applause. You, you get to build something real, quiet, solid, unshakable. And over time, when the noise fades, what remains is someone who didn't wait to be saved. Someone who chose to rise anyway. Part 1. The reality check. Nobody owes you anything. Here's a truth many people spend years trying to avoid, and it hits like cold water to the face. Nobody owes you anything. Not the world, not your parents, not your partner, your boss, or your friends. Life doesn't come with a guarantee, and it certainly doesn't come with a refund policy. The Stoics knew this deeply. Life isn't fair, and that's not a complaint. It's just reality. Things happen. People let you down. Plans fall apart. Sometimes you do everything right, and still, it doesn't work out. But here's the twist. Accepting this doesn't make you cynical. It makes you powerful. Because as long as you believe life should be fair, that people should treat you better, that success should come your way just because you've suffered long enough, you're placing your peace in someone else's hands. You're handing over your power to circumstances. And let's be honest, how often has entitlement ever made anyone stronger? That feeling of "I deserve more," if you hold on to it long enough, it turns into bitterness, resentment, a quiet war against the world. You start keeping score. I did this, so life should give me that. But life doesn't play by your rules. So what do? You stop waiting to be rewarded. You stop demanding fairness like it's a birthright, and you start building, quietly and intentionally, regardless of the outcome. That's what the Stoics taught, not because they were cold or emotionless, but because they were realists with purpose. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about that. If you're waiting for life to be fair before you give it your best, you'll be waiting forever. But if you accept that no one owes you anything, You stop playing the victim. You start owning your path. It's not about giving up. It's about waking up. You stop expecting the world to carry you and start choosing to carry yourself. And that's when real growth begins, not in comfort, not in fairness, but in responsibility. So here's the question. Are you spending your energy blaming the game, or are you learning how to play it better? This mindset shift is hard. It forces you to look in the mirror and say, no one's coming to save me, so I better become the kind of person who can save myself. And that's not depressing, it's liberating. Because once you drop the illusion that the world owes you something, every small win becomes a gift. Every step forward feels earned. You're no longer living with the weight of unmet expectations. You're living with clarity, agency, and strength. Over time, this one shift reshapes your entire life. You become less reactive, less dependent on praise or handouts. You become more grounded, more self-led, more unshakable. So if today feels unfair, good, use it. Let that discomfort fuel your discipline. Let it remind you you are not entitled to ease, but you are capable of rising anyway. That's the reality check Stoicism offers. And if you're brave enough to accept it, it just might become the foundation of your inner freedom. Part 2. Let go of the need to be understood. Here's something that can quietly drain your energy more than failure, criticism, or rejection. The constant need to be understood. You work hard, you try to do the right thing, you speak your truth, and still someone misinterprets your intentions, questions your decisions, maybe even mocks your journey. It hurts, doesn't it? You think, if they just knew my heart, if they just saw what I was really trying to do, then maybe they get it. But often, they won't. And here's the harsh but freeing truth. Not everyone is meant to understand you. And that's okay. The Stoics would tell you, peace is not found in the opinions of others. It's found in your own clarity, your own integrity, your own inner stillness. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, the opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject. Now apply that to your life. People may comment on your choices without context, judge your actions without knowing your pain, your values, your path. They're reacting through the lens of their experience, their fears, their limitations, not your truth. So what do? You stop performing for their approval. You stop editing yourself so that everyone in the room nods along. You stop seeking emotional clearance from people who were never meant to understand your mission. Let me ask you this. How much of your life have you spent explaining yourself? Trying to be palatable, trying to be agreeable, trying to be gettable, and in the process, how much of your truth have you watered down? When you let go of the need to be understood, you stop handing over your emotional peace for temporary validation. You start honoring something deeper, your own alignment. Think of it like this. Not being understood doesn't mean you're wrong. It might just mean you're ahead of your time, or healing something they haven't looked at, or simply taking a different route. And that's perfectly fine. You're not here to fit into someone else's mental model of who you should be. You're here to become the clearest, most grounded version of who you truly are. And that process, it's often lonely, but it's also where your power lives. Letting go of the need to be understood means you trust yourself enough to keep walking, even when no one claps, even when people misread you, even when your path looks strange to the outside world. Because inner peace isn't about getting everyone to agree with you, it's about not needing them to. Over time, this shift creates something profound. You stop defending your every move. You stop over-explaining your heart. You stop chasing harmony through approval. And instead, You anchor in quiet confidence. You become the kind of person who says, I know why I'm doing this, and that's enough. So here's your gentle reminder. The people who are meant for your path will feel your energy, even if they don't fully understand your words. The ones who don't, let them go with love. You don't need to prove yourself to earn peace. You just need to return to yourself and stay there. That's what stoic resilience looks like in real life. You become less disturbed by misunderstanding and more devoted to truth, clarity, and peace from within. And that's a life worth building. Part 3, your pain is your responsibility. Here's one of the hardest truths you'll ever have to accept. Your pain may not be your fault, but it's still your responsibility. Let that sink in for a moment. Yes, people may have hurt you. Yes, life may have been unfair, brutal even. And no, you didn't deserve the betrayal, the loss, the rejection, or the trauma. But still, the healing, the recovery, the rebuilding, that's on you. Now this might sound cold, but it's actually the most empowering realization you'll ever have. Because if you keep waiting for the person who broke you to fix you, you'll wait forever. If you keep replaying what happened, hoping it will somehow undo the damage, you'll stay stuck. And if you keep pointing fingers, even if you're right, you'll give your power away piece by piece. Here's the stoic truth. Blame feels satisfying in the short term. It gives us a target, a villain. But in the long run, it robs us of momentum. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And that includes how you choose to respond to pain. The moment you stop saying, why me, and start asking, what now? That's the moment healing begins. Let's be clear. Taking responsibility doesn't mean excusing what happened. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means choosing not to let it define you. Think about it. What if the pain you carry isn't just a weight, but a mirror? One that reflects your strength, your resilience, your values? What if your scars are not signs of weakness, but of growth? You don't get to rewrite the past, but you do get to decide what happens next. So let me ask you, are you using your pain as a reason to shrink or as a reason to rise? Every great transformation story has this turning point. The moment the hero stops waiting to be rescued and realizes, no one's coming, but I'm still here, and I can build from this. This is where your emotional power is born. Not in denial, not in revenge, but in radical self-ownership. When you take responsibility for your pain, you reclaim your story. You stop being a victim of your past and start becoming the author of your future. And here's what that looks like in real life. You go to therapy even when it's uncomfortable. You journal the hard truths even when they make you cry. You forgive not for them, but so you can move on. You stop numbing and start feeling. You stop blaming and start building. And no, it's not instant. It's messy. It's non-linear. But every small act of responsibility adds a brick to your new foundation. Over time, you don't just heal, you transform. You become someone who's been through the fire and still chose integrity. Someone who didn't let pain harden them, but deepen them. Someone who owns their wounds without letting them run the show. Because true power isn't pretending you've never been hurt. It's standing tall despite it and saying, this pain may have shaped me, but it does not define me. That's the Stoic path. It's not about denying your emotions. It's about facing them head on and taking full responsibility for how you carry them forward. So if you've been hurt, I see you. But don't let that pain be the end of your story. Pick up the pieces. Own your healing. Reclaim your life. You deserve peace, not because someone else gives it to you, but because you decided to create it. And that journey starts the moment you say, I take responsibility for my growth, my healing, and my life. Part 4. Discipline is the highest form of self-respect. Let's pause and get honest for a second. How many times have you told yourself, I'll start tomorrow? How often do you wait for that perfect wave of motivation to finally feel ready? We've all been there. But here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. Motivation is unreliable. It flares up and disappears. It's like a spark, quick, exciting, but it doesn't last. What lasts is discipline. Discipline isn't flashy. It's not thrilling. It's not about inspiration or mood. It's about making a promise to yourself and keeping it, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because showing up when it's easy, that's convenience. But showing up when it's tough, that's growth. That's self-respect. Think about it. Every time you keep your word to yourself, whether it's going for that walk, finishing that project, saying no to a distraction, you're reinforcing something deeper. You're saying, I matter. My goals matter. My future matters more than my temporary comfort. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, who carried the weight of an empire, wrote not to impress others, but to remind himself of who he chose to be every single day. He didn't write only when he felt good. He wrote when he was tired, discouraged, under pressure, because he knew that discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. So let me ask you, are you living by mood or by principle? Do your actions align with your values only when it's convenient, or do they hold steady through resistance? Because that's the real test. Anyone can start strong, but how many finish what they begin? Discipline isn't about being rigid. It's about being rooted. It's the daily decision to show up with consistency, not intensity. It's not lifting the heaviest weight once. It's showing up to train again and again, even when no one's watching. Here's what most people miss. Discipline isn't punishment. It's love. The kind of love that says, I refuse to abandon myself. The kind of love that chooses what's right over what's easy. That says, I'm worth the effort, even when it's uncomfortable. And no, it won't always feel good. There will be mornings you don't want to get out of bed. Evenings when giving up sounds so tempting. Moments when your old habits come knocking, offering comfort in exchange for your progress. But here's what separates the strong from the stuck. The strong choose the future over the feeling. They know discipline is the quiet architect of transformation. Over time, that consistency changes you. It rewires your self-perception. It builds inner confidence, not because things got easier, but because you got stronger. You stop questioning your worth because your actions are aligned with it. And that, my friend, is self-respect in action. So if you've been waiting for motivation to show up, don't. It's not coming, and it's not needed. What you need is a reason, a rhythm, a responsibility to your future self. And that begins now, not when it's perfect, not when it's easy, but today, one step, one act, one discipline at a time. Because the strongest version of you, they're not built in moments of inspiration. They're forged in silence, in routine, in repetition, and most importantly, in integrity. So if you're serious about change, don't wait to feel like it, act like it. Part 5, routine protects your peace. Let me ask you something honest. When was the last time your day felt truly calm? Not because the world was quiet, but because you were? Most of us wake up and instantly dive into noise. Emails, notifications, responsibilities. We run on autopilot, reacting to whatever hits us next. And by the end of the day, we wonder why we feel overwhelmed, distracted, drained. But here's a Stoic truth that doesn't get talked about enough. Peace isn't something you wait for. It's something you build. And your routine is the foundation. A structured day may sound boring, but in reality, it's one of the most powerful tools for reclaiming your energy and protecting your mind. Because when your mornings are grounded, your emotions don't control you. You lead them. When your evenings are reflective, your stress doesn't spiral. You process it. Simple habits done daily are not small things. They are anchors in the storm. Marcus Aurelius didn't just lead Rome, he led himself. Every morning, he reminded himself of what he stood for. Every night, he reflected not to judge, but to learn. Why? Because even emperors needed structure to stay sane in chaos. So what makes us think we can thrive without it? Let's get practical for a moment. Start your morning with stillness, just 5 minutes. Before you reach for your phone, reach for your breath. Write down your focus, your intention. What matters today, not to others, but to you. And at night, ask yourself, what did I do well? What drained me? What can I do better tomorrow? These small checkpoints, done consistently, do something powerful. They shift your mindset from reactive to reflective, from scattered to solid. And no, this doesn't mean your life will be perfectly tidy. You'll still have messy days, unexpected calls, sudden stress. But when your foundation is strong, those moments don't shake you as easily. You stop getting pulled into other people's chaos. You stop outsourcing your peace to external conditions. You begin to live deliberately. That's what a true routine gives you. Control over your energy, your focus, your emotional world. Not because life is easier, but because you're stronger. And here's the key. Routine isn't about rigidity. It's about rhythm. It's not about forcing your life into a box. It's about creating space for clarity and purpose. So if your mind feels chaotic lately, maybe it's not because you're doing too much. Maybe it's because you're doing too much without direction. And the fix isn't to escape your life. It's to structure it bit by bit. One intentional morning, one honest evening, one clear decision at a time. Because peace doesn't show up by accident. It's something you design by how you begin and end each day. So take your time back, guard your energy, and build a life where peace isn't a weekend escape. It's your daily way of being. Part 6. Don't chase. Building. Let's get real for a second. Have you ever caught yourself chasing something or someone, hoping they'd finally see your worth? That if you just worked harder, looked better, or showed more effort, you'd finally be enough in their eyes. We've all been there. And it's exhausting. But here's a truth most people avoid. The more you chase, the more you lose your power. The more you beg for validation, attention, or love, the more you shrink yourself into someone you're not. And the Stoics, they'd call that a form of self-abandonment, because real strength, the kind that commands respect and attracts what's right, doesn't come from chasing, it comes from building. You don't become magnetic by running after things. You become magnetic by becoming grounded, by becoming solid in who you are. Think about it like this. A tree doesn't chase the sunlight. It roots deeper, grows stronger, and the sun finds it. So instead of trying to prove your value to the wrong people, focus on being valuable. Build your mind, build your habits, build your peace, and suddenly you'll notice the right people, friends, partners, opportunities start gravitating toward you. Not because you begged for them, but because your energy became something worth being around. That's what the Stoic mindset teaches us. Let go of desperation. Anchor yourself in purpose. Marcus Aurelius didn't seek popularity. He sought virtue, discipline, clarity, and because of that, his legacy still speaks across thousands of years. So ask yourself, are you living to impress others or to improve yourself? Are you hoping for someone to pick you, or are you choosing to build a version of you that doesn't need to be picked at all? Because here's the paradox. When you stop chasing, you start attracting. Not through manipulation, but through truth. Not through performance, but through alignment. And yes, it takes time. It's slower, it's quieter, but it's real, and it lasts. Over time, this grounded energy changes everything. You no longer cling to what doesn't choose you. You no longer crumble when people pull away. You stay rooted. You stay rising. So if you feel like you're doing everything right but still getting overlooked, here's your reminder. Stop chasing. Start building. Not to get noticed, but to become undeniable. That's the shift. That's the work. That's the Stoic way. And it begins today with one solid step inward. Part 7. Silence is power. In a world that rewards noise, reacting fast, and speaking first, choosing silence can feel like weakness. But the truth is, silence is one of the most underrated forms of power you'll ever develop. Think about it. When someone insults you, what's your first instinct? To clap back, defend yourself, prove them wrong. It feels good in the moment, like you're taking control. But more often than not, that reactive energy only fuels the fire. The Stoics saw this clearly. They taught that silence isn't about passivity, it's about mastery. You don't stay quiet because you're weak. You stay quiet because you're anchored, because you're not controlled by emotion, ego, or the need to be understood by everyone. Stillness gives you space. Space to observe, not just react. Space to choose your response instead of becoming a puppet of your emotions. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, if you are disturbed by something external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That's the gift of silence. It buys you time to revoke the overreaction. It gives you the distance to respond with intention instead of regret. Now, let's be clear. Silence doesn't mean avoidance. It doesn't mean letting people walk all over you or refusing to speak truth when needed. It means you stop reacting to every trigger, every provocation, every comment that doesn't sit right. It's learning to pause before you post, to breathe before you speak, to reflect before you rage. And ironically, the quieter you become, the more power you hold. Because while others are burning energy on drama, arguments, and defending their every move, you're preserving yours. You're staying clear. You're operating from a deeper strength. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, ask yourself, do I need to respond to this? Or is my silence the stronger answer? Because not every battle is worth fighting, not every opinion needs correcting, and not every attack deserves your energy. Over time, practicing silence doesn't just make you calmer, it makes you wiser, more respected, more in control of your emotional world. So don't be afraid to embrace the quiet. In the stillness, you'll find clarity. In the pause, you'll find your power. And eventually you'll realize the strongest voice isn't always the loudest. Sometimes it's the one that knows when not to speak at all. Part 8. Detach from the outcome. Let me ask you something hard but honest. How much of your stress comes from trying to control something that isn't yours to control? You do everything right. You show up. You work hard. You give your heart to a relationship, a project, a dream. And still, the outcome isn't what you hope for. No applause, no recognition, no guaranteed success. Just silence. Or worse, failure. And that's when the frustration kicks in, right? That voice in your head that says, what's the point? But here's the Stoic truth. The point was never the result. The point was the process, your effort, your intention, because you don't control the outcome. You never did. All you control is the input, your mindset, your focus, your actions. Everything else, that's outside your hands. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, said it clearly. Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to. Rather, want them to happen as they do, and your life will go well. At first, that can feel like giving up, but it's the opposite. It's letting go of the illusion that the world owes you a specific reward just because you tried. You see, attachment to results is a trap. It's the root of unnecessary pain. You launch a business and it flops. You love someone deeply, but they leave. You speak your truth and you're misunderstood. Was it a waste? Not if your effort was honest. Not if your values stayed intact. Not if you showed up fully and stayed true to yourself. That's what Stoic detachment is about. It's not cold indifference. It's courageous clarity. It's saying, I will give my best and let go of the rest. I will care deeply without clinging tightly. I will walk my path without needing every step to be rewarded. That kind of mindset doesn't make you weak. It makes you free. So let me ask you, what would happen if you stopped obsessing over the outcome? What if you poured yourself into the work and trusted that the process is enough? Because here's the truth. Even when things don't turn out the way you hoped, they still shape you. Disappointments refine you. Rejections reveal your resilience. Failures teach you precision. You become stronger, not in spite of the setbacks, but because of how you responded to them. And in the long run, detachment isn't about not caring. It's about caring in a healthier way. You stop tying your identity to outcomes. You stop judging your worth by results. You start measuring your growth by your discipline, your effort, your consistency. Over time, this shift creates peace. You're no longer emotionally tossed around by what does or doesn't happen. You move from desperation to direction, from anxiety to alignment. So here's your reminder. Detach from the outcome, not because the outcome doesn't matter, but because your peace matters more. And ironically, the less you chase the result, the more present you become in the action. And the more present you are, the better the result often turns out. Because people can feel when you're operating from pressure, and they can feel when you're moving from purpose. So give your best. Let the rest unfold. That's the Stoic way. Steady hands, clear mind, open heart, not chasing, but choosing, not clinging, but creating. And that's the kind of strength that doesn't just survive the chaos, it rises above it. Part 9, set emotional boundaries. Here's a truth most people overlook. Not every emotion deserves your full attention. Not every feeling requires a reaction, and not every conflict is worth stepping into. Let that sink in for a moment, because in a world where we're constantly overstimulated, always reacting, always plugged in, what we're missing isn't more emotion, it's more space. Emotional boundaries aren't about shutting people out. They're about protecting the parts of you that need to stay strong. Your focus, your peace, your clarity. Think about it this way. You wouldn't let just anyone walk into your house, throw their stuff on your floor, and start shouting demands, right? Then why let them do that to your mind? Every time you overreact to a comment online, every time you let someone else's bad mood ruin your entire day, every time you absorb stress that doesn't belong to you, you're giving away pieces of yourself that you need for your own growth. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Setting emotional boundaries isn't selfish. It's self-respect in action. Because when you don't have boundaries, you end up drained. You carry emotions that aren't yours. You lose time solving problems that weren't yours to begin with. So how do you begin? First, learn to pause before reacting, before defending, before spiraling. Take a breath, step back. Ask yourself, does this truly require my energy? Is this mine to carry? Will this still matter tomorrow, or is it just noise? Second, remember this. You are not responsible for how others feel about your truth. If you say something with kindness and clarity, and they twist it, that's on them. If you choose peace, and they still choose drama, that's not your fight. Your mental space is sacred. Treat it that way. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care wisely. You learn to be compassionate without becoming consumed. Think of it like tending a fire. You can give warmth, light, and comfort, but if you let every gust of wind blow into it, you risk losing the flame entirely. So if someone disrespects your boundaries, let that be a sign. Not a reason to shrink, but a reminder to stand firm. Kindness isn't weakness. Silence isn't surrender. And boundaries, they're not walls. They're filters, keeping what strengthens you in and letting the rest pass. Let me ask you, how often have you said yes when you meant no? How many times have you sat with guilt for simply choosing yourself? It's time to unlearn that. Because here's the truth. The more you protect your energy, the more you can give it meaningfully. The more you say no to what drains you, the more space you have to say yes to what builds you. Over time, emotional boundaries aren't just about reacting less. They're about living better, clearer, calmer, more intentional. You stop being a sponge for chaos and start becoming a source of grounded strength. People will notice the difference, not because you're louder, but because you're rooted. Not because you shut down, but because you've learned the wisdom of inner limits. So from today on, treat your emotional space like your most valuable real estate. Because it is. Guard it, tend it, and grow from within. Part 10. Let them judge. It's none of your business. Here's a hard truth we all have to face sooner or later. No matter what you do, someone's going to misunderstand you. Someone's going to mislabel you. And someone's going to judge you based on a version of you that only exists in their mind. It happens to the best of us. You could speak from the heart, and someone will still twist your words. You could act with integrity, and someone will still question your motives. You could play small just to be liked, and still end up disliked anyway. So let's stop playing that game. Let me say it clearly. What other people think of you is not your responsibility. Their opinions are not your business. Their approval is not your oxygen. Because if you live your life constantly trying to manage everyone's perception of you, you'll forget who you are in the process. Think about that. You start filtering your words to avoid judgment. You start holding back your truth so no one gets offended. You start shrinking yourself to fit someone else's comfort zone. And in doing so, you trade authenticity for acceptance, only to realize later that it was never real acceptance to begin with. The Stoics knew this long before social media gave everyone a microphone. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That's not about being reckless. It's about being grounded. Because when you know who you are, you no longer need everyone to agree with you. You stop needing to chase image, and you start choosing integrity. You stop trying to be liked and start trying to live aligned. You stop explaining yourself to people who've already made up their minds. Let me ask you this. How much of your energy is spent worrying about what they think? How often do you rehearse conversations in your head that might never happen just to defend yourself against judgment that hasn't even come? That's emotional debt. That's time and peace you never get back. Here's the shift. You don't need to defend your worth. You just need to live it. Let people talk. Let them assume. Let them misunderstand. And let yourself rise anyway. Because their judgment says more about them than it does about you. And your silence, your steadiness, your refusal to be rattled, that's what true confidence looks like. Confidence isn't loud. It's not combative. It doesn't need a microphone. Real confidence is quiet. It walks into the room fully aware that it doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. And when you live like that, when your self-worth no longer dances to the tune of public opinion, you become untouchable in the best way. So the next time someone judges you, pause and remember, you don't need to correct them. You don't need to convince them. You just need to keep walking. Over time, their opinions fade, but your character remains. Let them judge. You've got better things to do. Part 11. See setbacks as redirection, not rejection. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever given everything you had to a dream, only to watch it fall apart? Have you ever felt like life slammed a door shut just when you were finally starting to believe? We all have. That's the thing about setbacks. They don't knock politely. They crash in uninvited. They disrupt plans, derail progress, and punch holes in our confidence. And in those moments, it's tempting to ask, why is this happening to me? But here's a more powerful question. What if this is not punishment, but redirection? You see, the Stoics had a radical way of looking at failure. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." He didn't mean that obstacles are to be avoided. He meant that they are necessary, that life doesn't block you to break you. It blocks you to build you. Let's break this down. Sometimes when life says no, it's not ending your journey. It's editing it. Maybe that relationship ended because it was shrinking your potential. Maybe that job rejection wasn't a failure, but a filter, clearing the path for a better fit. Maybe the thing you lost was never aligned with the person you're meant to become. It doesn't feel good in the moment. Let's be real. Disappointment stings. But growth isn't always gentle. Sometimes it arrives wrapped in frustration, in uncertainty, in an unexpected detour. And if you only measure your life by outcomes, you'll miss the transformation happening inside you. Every time you stumble, you're learning how to balance. Every time you fail, you're learning what doesn't work and who you are when things fall apart. Let me offer a different lens. What if your setback is life's way of asking, are you truly committed to this path or just attached to the plan? There's a big difference between attachment and alignment. Attachment clings to what was. Alignment listens to what's needed now. And when you trust that even the obstacles have purpose, you begin to see failure not as a stop sign, but as a compass. It's not blocking the path. It is the path. That's the Stoic mindset. So instead of fearing setbacks, get curious. What is this moment trying to teach you? What part of you is being strengthened through this challenge? Maybe you didn't get what you wanted yet, but maybe you're being shaped into the kind of person who's ready for something greater. Over time, this mindset doesn't just help you survive disappointment, it helps you use it. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of bad luck and start walking as a student of reality. You stop waiting for smooth roads and start becoming someone who can handle any terrain. So next time you fall, don't just get back up. Get back up wiser, get back up aligned, and trust that whatever fell apart might have just saved you from a future that wasn't yours. Because when life reroutes you, it's not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of the right one. Part 12. Be so focused on your growth, drama can't reach you. Let me share a truth that might change how you move through life. You don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. And you definitely don't need to water the weeds just because they're growing near your garden. See, in a world addicted to conflict, your greatest rebellion is peace. The Stoics understood this. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. It's not about pretending the drama doesn't exist. It's about rising above it. Because when you're genuinely focused on your own growth, the noise doesn't stick. Think about it. Have you ever been so locked in, so committed to your goals, that even chaos couldn't shake you? That's not just discipline. That's inner alignment. And it's not about being cold or indifferent. It's about being selective with your energy. When you know the cost of peace, you stop giving it away so easily. Let others gossip. Let them project their wounds, their fears, their distractions. You stay grounded. You stay focused because you know what you're building. Growth isn't loud. It doesn't need to defend itself. It's quiet, intentional, and consistent. While others are busy pulling each other down to feel important, you're climbing one step, one choice, one disciplined day at a time. And trust me, that kind of focus becomes a force field. Not because you're avoiding life, but because you've chosen a better way to live it. Every time you let go of a pointless argument, every time you protect your morning routine instead of checking your phone, every time you keep walking instead of reacting to petty behavior, you're proving something powerful to yourself. Your peace is not negotiable. So ask yourself, is this situation helping me grow, or is it dragging me into someone else's chaos? Is this worth my energy, or am I just reacting out of habit? Over time, this mindset does more than protect you. It transforms you. You become the kind of person who walks with calm in a storm, who keeps their vision clear even when others are distracted, who doesn't chase validation but creates value, quietly, relentlessly. Because at the end of the day, your future isn't built by winning debates or clapping back. It's built by showing up for yourself, day after day, with clarity, purpose, and peace. So stay in your lane. Water your own garden. Let the drama dry out without your attention. You're not here to be liked. You're here to become. The inner revolution. Let me ask you something. What if the most powerful transformation you'll ever experience doesn't come with noise, applause, or recognition? What if it's silent, so silent that no one else even notices? Would you still choose it? That's the heart of the Stoic journey. We live in a world that celebrates volume, loud success, loud opinions, loud validation. But real power, it's quiet. It doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't announce itself. It builds slowly, through choices no one else sees, like waking up early when you'd rather sleep, staying calm when everything in you wants to react, showing up for yourself when no one's watching. That's what the Stoics taught us, that the greatest revolution you'll ever lead is the one inside you. And it doesn't happen overnight. It begins the moment you stop chasing things that drain you, approval, drama, perfection, and start reclaiming your energy, your mind, your time. Because here's the truth. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need the world's permission to become who you're meant to be. You just need clarity and courage. Clarity to know what matters. Courage to let go of what doesn't. That means saying no more often. That means getting honest about what you've been tolerating within others and within yourself. That means refusing to abandon your peace just to belong somewhere that costs you your integrity This is what it means to live with inner discipline, to be guided not by impulse but by intention, not by noise but by values. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations to impress anyone. He wrote them to remind himself, stay strong, stay centered, do the right thing, even when it's hard. That's the Stoic way. And maybe the world doesn't care about your discipline. Maybe they won't applaud your silence, your boundaries, or your emotional restraint. But you will. You'll feel it in the way you handle hard days. You'll feel it when you stop explaining yourself to people who never tried to understand you. You'll feel it in the peace that comes from living on your terms, not theirs. Because this isn't about becoming untouchable. It's about becoming whole. You're not here to impress. You're here to express, to embody the strength, calm, and clarity that can't be faked. To walk with quiet confidence even when no one notices. To lead yourself even when no one's following. That's the inner revolution, and it's the only one that truly matters. So let this be your reminder. You are enough. You don't need to be louder. You need to be clearer. You don't need to be faster. You need to be truer. And when you stop fighting for the wrong things, you finally have space to build the right ones. Let go of what doesn't serve you. Reclaim your attention. Protect your peace. And above all, choose to grow, even when it's quiet, even when it's hard, even when no one claps, because the world may not care, but you do, and that's enough. If this video helped you refocus your energy, consider subscribing for more Stoic insights every week.